It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages. Nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore. A professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
All right, rock that out, man. All right, folks, good afternoon, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. I am Joe Mangiacotti, and you can join the conversation for the next hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Our text line is up and running, 617-297-8388. You can text that like you would anyone else. It appears on a screen here in the studio in real time. We'll try to work it into the conversation if, it's okay. 617-297-8388. The station does stream 24/7 on the TuneIn app, so you can take us anywhere. I love that feature. You can also tell Alexa to play WCRN. She'll do it, no questions asked. Now, I do stream the show to the station's social media platform of YouTube and Facebook, so you can watch it and listen there as I broadcast from our palatial but not overly ostentatious studios here high atop the Carberry Towers in Westboro, Massachusetts, and I do stream to my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I. So that's Facebook, X, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and we do stream live to Rumble. It isn't loaded up later on. It is live right now on Rumble if you'd like to go to the Joe Mangiacotti Show channel there. And the show is turned into a podcast when I get off the air. So you can subscribe or download wherever you get your podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Spotify. iHeartRadio is the big high percentage of where people do download it and listen on iHeartRadio for whatever reason that is. Today, behind the glass flying the board, so he'll get you set up and into the studio for two-way talk and conversation at 508-871-7000. All right, obviously, big story breaking today. Nearly 5 years after the January 6th riot, federal agents this morning arrested a Virginia man. Now, they believe he planted the pipe bombs outside both the Republican and Democratic National Committee headquarters on the night of January 5th. In multiple outlets, they're all reporting the same thing. 30-year-old Brian Cole of Woodbridge, Virginia, 30 years old. If you've seen the aerial shot, it seems like a very nice neighborhood, right? Woodbridge, Virginia. The home, very large, colonial. And I'm wondering, is this his house, parents' house? Is he living there? Was he living there 5 years ago? These are all things that have got to come out. He's expected to be charged in federal court in D.C. later today, which means Janine Pirro will be the prosecutor here. Good luck, guy. Investigators say the devices were real, viable bombs that could have killed or seriously injured people. In their discovery, pulled law enforcement away from the Capitol just as the upset was happening and unfolding. So this is the first arrest in the case. It's frustrated the FBI. Some of the criticism I'm already seeing on this, and stick with me on this. Look how long it took the FBI. They knew all this stuff. It was a different FBI. It was a Joe Biden FBI up until, 10 months ago. And you figure it takes a couple months, maybe longer, for Kash Patel, Dan Bongino to get their bearing in there. And they're saying that they busted this because of previously viewed footage. So the information they needed to make this arrest apparently has been in the evidence this whole time. I don't know what it is. There was a $500,000 tip out there or reward. I don't know if that was utilized. Does somebody have $500,000 coming their way? I don't know. We haven't seen. This is unfolding as we're on the air. Unfolding as we're talking. There's reports that the sneakers this Jamoke wore were such special editions that there was a very limited number even sold in the United States. So that's always a smart thing to do when you're committing multiple felonies. And that might have been something. We don't know what it is that actually triggered them, except the reports that a lot of this has to do with the fact that they reviewed footage that they've already had. So that means the FBI under the Joe Biden DOJ and the Joe Biden FBI for years weren't able to solve this crime, even though they were in possession, obviously, of enough evidence to do so. That's interesting in itself. So, arrested. We'll see how he has to go to court, get indicted or arraigned, indicted. It's all going to happen. Discovery will happen. We'll get more and more. This is going to be a very hot story, obviously. What was the motivation behind it? He did this to both Republican and Democrat committee headquarters. And Kamala Harris was at the DNC. She had to be escorted out of there. And their discovery pulled law enforcement off the Capitol when this was happening. So think about this. So nearly 5 years after the January 6th disturbance in the Capitol, FBI arrested a suspect. And some of the outlets, more conservative Fox, Just the News, Breitbart, New York Post, report that the man in custody, again, is Brian Cole of Woodbridge. Now, what's going to be the coverage of MS Now and CNN and even the legacy stuff? Because they, I'm assuming, don't know what the motivation and who this guy is. So hopefully we all find out together. But I can tell you one thing, every news outlet should be covering this same. This is news across the board. Absolutely. Now, more than 16 hours before they were discovered, on the 6th, Congress met to ratify the 2020 election. The FBI had put a $500,000 reward. Released new video earlier in this year. Now, the officials are saying a new team using new tools finally broke the case. Motive unknown. DOJ will lay out the charges at a press conference later today. Hopefully I'll see that when I get off the air. And, you can add a quick aside here, right? Most of this is coming from not the mainstream media, which is always interesting. Because they're covering it, and I look at the massive fraud that's been taking place in Minnesota, $1 billion, with majority of it, a lot of it going to Somali scammers and even sent back to Somali. And you've got the legacy media giving that story a good leaving alone. Why? And I don't want to hear anything about racist because they're Somali, and that's so asinine. You commit a fraud on this scale, and by the way, just not Minnesota. Wait. Same kind of level of fraud coming out of California, too. And we have our fair share of fraud here in Massachusetts as well. Woo! And a lot of this has been kicked off because of Doge, and it's also being kicked off because now we have a DOJ and we have these agencies under the Trump administration that aren't afraid to go after it and aren't being told to give it a leave it alone if you like your career. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's go to the phones. Mark's waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, what say you?
Well, you want to know why the big reason is you're not hearing about the million plus, maybe $2 billion in fraud that's been going on in the state of Minnesota because their governor is named Timmy. And he was the vice president for the Democratic National Committee. He was going to be the vice president. That's why you don't hear nothing about it.
Well, we're hearing about it on other we're hearing it on Fox and Newsmax and all of that.
I'm not talking about mainstream media.
Mainstream media. But Mark, they tend not to cover anything that puts a bad light on any Democrat anywhere. I mean, yeah, he was the vice president nominee for the Democrats in the 2024 election, but he lost big time. And what's interesting is there were whistleblowers yelling about this when she picked him, and she still picked him, regardless of the fact that he had all of this baggage and stupidity around him.
Well, he's still the governor of Minnesota, isn't he?
Color me surprised.
So this is all happening under his watch,
absolutely.
Isn't it?
Not only under his watch, but he ignored some of it.
Well, of course he's going to ignore it. You think he's going to cut to it? No, he ain't going to do that.
Yeah.
Now, this pipe bomber, were the bombs placed prior to the riots breaking out?
Yes.
Or they were? Oh,
on the 5th.
Okay. And, it's been 5 years that the FBI apparently has been sitting on this evidence and nothing up until right now. I bet you that guy thought he was never going to get busted. Huh?
Yeah. He had a rude awakening
everyone.
this morning. Thank you, Mark. Always appreciate it. Good point, Mark. He's like, hey, 5 years. You know what? They're letting this go. They're not that motivated. Yeah, then we got a new sheriff in town, multiple new sheriffs, right? A Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, and, of course, the biggest high sheriff, Donald Trump. And, I mean, the fact that they have been finding bags and boxes of cases and files in rooms, storage rooms they didn't even know existed is absolutely dumbfounding. And, yeah, they were sitting on a new team looking at it. Some new tools and so forth, but I think this speaks a lot for the new FBI that have been able to do this and make this arrest. Now, remember that you had, I think, Kash Patel was on Kash. What's the Outkick guy? They replaced Rush, and he does a thing. I can't remember his name right now with the long face, but Kash Patel was on his podcast the other day, and he said, actually, there's some big stuff coming down. You'll see some big arrests very shortly. In 48 hours later, this happened. But he said a couple of big things that are coming down the pike. So, okay. This is a pretty big arrest, guys. Big arrest. What else is coming after that? But we got to take the first break here on the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show at AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available in our text line, 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. Tomorrow, 1 o'clock, I'm not back. It's the Carr brothers will be here at 1 o'clock tomorrow for that great show. So they'll be here at 1 o'clock, and I won't be here for the rest of the week. But anyway, 508-871-7000. Back in 2 and 10, folks. All right, folks, welcome back here to the second segment of the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show at AM 830 WCRN, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Again, the big news is the pipe bomber who placed those pipe bombs, very real workable pipe bombs outside of the RNC and DNC night before January 6th debacle. He did on the 5th. And he had a gray hoodie, but here, this could be the downfall, only because we've gotten these reports in some of the articles. He was wearing these Nike Air Max Speed Turf sneakers with gold and yellow logo, which aren't really sold a lot. They're very limited edition, actually sold in the United States. So if this is the case and they were able to take the sneakers, track down everybody that bought them, and own them, what an idiot to wear such a unique piece of clothing, regardless of the gray hoodie, the mask, gloves, and glasses he was also wearing. In the backpack, you wear a very limited edition sneaker. That's on you, bro. I mean, I'm sorry. And the FBI, under Kash Patel, they raised the reward to $500,000, and they released a little higher quality footage back in January of this year. So, maybe that had a lot to do with it. 508-871-7000. Let's go to the phones. Ken. Go ahead, Ken. What say you?
Well, Joe, remember almost a month ago this topic got brought up?
Don't, but that's okay. Remind me.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
I brought it up.
Okay.
Namely because there was a story at the time coming from the Blaze, namely Steve Baker, saying that there's a woman that had been identified with the gate of the pipeline.
Okay, now I remember that. The gate, they said it might have been a female.
Yeah.
But they arrested a male, Corey. This kid, what's his name? First name.
So the person identified today is a male.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Well, we're assuming no one asked what he identifies as yet.
Yeah. You got a point there.
So.
But I find it very curious that literally yesterday, I listened to a lot of different sources. So one of the sources, including Megyn Kelly, and I think there was a second, was saying that the whole Baker story was being proven to be false, and he could be subject to defamation, or at least the Blaze, or the Blaze. Isn't that curious that was coming out, and then today's, I just bring that up to a PI like you and say, what are we to make of this? Because my antenna is saying, I don't trust the intelligence agencies. Not to say I have a problem with Patel and Bongino. I'm just saying the agencies have been so corrupt for so many years, if not decades.
Right.
That I'm guessing there's a game being played here.
Oh, I have no doubt. I think there's games being played in D.C. all the time and among the agencies all the time. I think that...
If only we had Dr. Larry to fill us in.
I know. I'd love to know his perspective, what he would say about all this unfolding. But I got to tell you, it's right. All this time, I look at this and I see the left trying to spin it. Oh my God, the FBI. Look, you can't tell me the FBI that is now in place and still assuming into all aspects of the current FBI is nothing like the FBI of 3, 4, 5 years ago under Biden and look at the over the years, right? The agents with the insurance policy, how much they were blatantly hated Trump and hurting, and that's a very bad thing to see in the federal largest federal law enforcement agency in the country, not to mention the intelligence agencies. So I hope that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino has cleaned out a lot of these leftovers and throwbacks. I understand a lot of people have left the FBI, and some people have left it without it necessarily being their choice, and that's good. I mean, if they were violating the spirit of their oath, and especially, I mean, we have FBI agents, Ken, who altered forms, lied under oath, right? Lied to FISA courts. Those people, I don't think that it shouldn't just be lose your job, your pension. You should be doing some time for that kind of thing. You have to install the trust back in the American people with such a powerful agency as the FBI.
Think of this, Joe, as sort of like a Jenga game. What you just stated may be absolutely true. Boy, this person's a black cat. But it's sort of like you mess with that black cat, and all of a sudden you pulled out the wrong Jenga piece, and it all comes. There's so many pieces of this puzzle. And so let me just presume something that may or may not be true. Yeah, I'm guessing that, all right, they already put Steve Baker in jail for not long, but just before he was pardoned in January 2021. So I'm going to guess at least one of the black hats involved with that is still doing his job, his or her job. You can't get every black hat up. Mm-hmm. And so they might have given him a bum steer to set him up. And now we're hopefully getting the real story. But then again, if you think that, okay, we got the guy and we're going to prosecute him and he's going to be found guilty, I seriously doubt that. I'm not saying the prosecution may not happen. I'm just saying, where is the prosecution going to happen? It's probably going to happen in D.C., and you're talking about jury nullification. So, folks, just get in touch with reality. That's the life we live in today.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. 100%. But, this broke early this morning, right? He'll be in court later today. He's dealing with Jean Pirro, which, sorry, guy, that's the luck of the draw for you, because she's gonna hit him with everything. If it turns out they've got the right guy and this is all this. But what do you think if it turns out that they actually did get him because of these special Nikes? I mean, isn't that really on him, Ken? That's just you wear such a traceable piece of clothing.
But you're missing the point, Joe. They're not even thinking that way because they can never imagine being prosecuted successfully in D.C.
Yeah.
If you could prosecute this in Kansas, he's dead meat. Who's going to be prosecuting D.C.? He's safe.
Yeah, but is this a left or right thing? Because he hit both DNC and RNC. We don't know what the motivation is. Right? I mean, was he anti-Republican or anti-Democrat? We can't tell by the actions yet. Right,
and we don't know if somebody way near the top was pulling all the strings. This guy just happened to be, the stupid.
Well, look, I assume whenever somebody does something so stupid, and I'm including people who took pot shots at the president, and the one who actually shot him in the head, I always assume they're at some level a useful idiot to somebody. I just assume that and see whether or not they can work the investigation backwards from that. But it doesn't always come out. A lot of times it seems like they want to wrap this up really neat and so forth. Do you really think Cook did that all by himself?
Oh, I got more information that I gave you clues of back on the anniversary, but I'm not going to state them until somebody else comes up with it.
Yeah.
Because you'd be like, whoa, holy, not going there, Joe, not going there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Ken, thank you for the call. Good points. I appreciate it. But, in this case, guys, if you're planting bombs at party headquarters, both of them, you're not a patriot. You're a domestic terrorist, period. And I don't care who you voted for or what rationale that you have or what you're doing there. And as I said, look, both RNC and DNC, it's not like one was a dummy bomb. They were both viable bombs. Ted, you want to say something?
I think it's important to remember, and this was back in 2023, July 12th, when FBI Director Christopher Wray testified in front of the House Judiciary Committee. One of the representatives showed a video of the person placing the bomb and then going over to the police cars and talking to the police cars. One was a black SUV, and the other was a marked Washington cop car. And I'm looking at the video right now, and it's right in front of where he placed the bomb. Now, I understand why, everybody's upset about the FBI and this and that. This was obviously a bad actor that was being supported by other bad actors.
Yeah.
And
you useful idiot.
The fact is that it's not the Kash Patel FBI.
No.
They are duty-bound to follow the evidence and only present it when it's clinched. That's it. They're not going to do it any other way. Otherwise, people will walk.
Yeah. And I always try to remind you guys that, because, look, when this gets to Jean Perrot's desk, she doesn't want a case with a lot of holes in it and so forth. So, yeah, I agree 100%. Under Kash Patel, and this is why I say, I know for the love of God, we say, will you start arresting people who have broke the law, who have done all of this? Will you arrest somebody for Christ's sakes? And I say, the only thing, and I can tell you, is coming from an investigative background, you rather put off dropping the hammer till you have an absolute impenetrable case, and you've crossed all the T's, dotted all the I's, and it may not move as fast as we want it because we see it and we're like, are you kidding me? Look what they did. They lied here. They used the FISA court. They leaked this. Then they used the media to confirm their story, and they did this and they did that, and we watched the coverage that's so biased and slated, and you're like, just for the love of God, arrest somebody. Well, I think that what we take some comfort in is when they finally do arrest somebody, there's probably a really good chance, to Ted's point, they've got an ironclad case, and they're not really going after this cold kid if they really don't have a lot on it. And I'm remembering that video now, which either one or two, either the police car, the officers in those vehicles totally missed what he just did before he walked over, or they were expecting that to happen. So the question, who's in those cars? So if we have the video, we have plate numbers, the marked car has a marking on it as to the car number, cruiser number, et cetera, pull the body cam footage, pull the data from the cruisers. They all have cameras, and they have recording their locations. They're recording how fast they're driving, even if your directional was on when you take a turn. But we have to take the mid-show break here in the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Don't forget, I am streaming to multiple social media platforms, so you can watch it on Facebook, X, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and, of course, Rumble. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. 508-871-7000. We'll be back in 2 and 10, folks. Stick with us. And welcome back here to the second half of the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Of course, you can listen on the TuneIn app. We do stream to that 24/7. Or you can watch and listen on my social media platforms or on Rumble. So we were talking about the fact that the police, I mean, if you haven't seen the video, right? So it's a cul-de-sac, very nice colonial in Woodbridge, Virginia. Big house, probably 4,500, 5,000 square foot home on a very idyllic type of situation. 30-year-old Cole kid. Is this the parents' house? Does he have this house in Virginia at 30? I don't know. But the point is, I mean, has he been living there for, this whole time? Obviously, the FBI has to be very concerned about booby traps or what's in the house. If the material that he used years ago to make 2 very viable pipe bombs are still there. So it's going to take all day, maybe a couple days, that they'll have that place shut down, collecting forensic evidence. They'll be in court later today. And they're saying, it's coming out of the FBI, that a new team took a look at this with some new tools. But we don't know yet all of the details that's going on here. And before the break, Ted, you were talking about the video, the testimony. So we pulled up some of the audio from describing that. So it's a long piece of audio, but let's give that a listen and just kind of bring back what we were talking about. Yeah,
from Kentucky is recognized for 5 minutes. I thank the chairman. Director Wray, in light of information provided to us about the FBI's investigation of the January 6th pipe bombs, in an interview with Assistant Director Stephen D'Antuono, Chairman Jordan and I sent you a letter a month ago. Some of the information that we found in that interview was that phone data that could have helped to identify the pipe bomber was corrupted, was unusable. He also wasn't sure who found or how the second bomb was found at the DNC. Do you know how the second bomb was found at the DNC? And when do you plan on answering our letter?
Well, as to the letter, I will work with the department to make sure we can figure out what information we can provide. As you know, this is a very active, ongoing investigation, and there are some restrictions on that, but we will do our best.
Yes, we can handle classified information, and we fund your department, and so you need to provide that.
It's not, respectfully, it's not an issue of classification. It's an issue of commenting on ongoing criminal investigations, which is something that by longstanding department policy we are restricted in doing. And in fact, the last administration actually strengthened those policies partly because...
That's not our policy, though, and we fund you. So let's move on. Do you know how the second pipe bomb... Can you tell us how the second pipe bomb was found at the DNC?
Again, I'm not going to get into that here.
900 days ago is when this happened, and you said you had total confidence we'd apprehend the subject. We've found video that looks like somebody, a passerby, miraculously found this pipe bomb at the DNC and then notified the police. Miraculously, I say, because it was at specifically the precise time to cause the maximum distraction from the events going on at the Capitol. Can you show this video that we have, please? I'd like to know if the director has seen this. This is somebody with a mask on, wearing a hat. They're walking in front of the DNC, which is out of the view on the right-hand side. You'll see him come into view. He goes to one police car. He goes to another police car. He's holding a backpack. He's got a mask on. He's talking to the police. And within a minute, they start scrambling. You'll see the camera turn to the pipe bomb, the location of the pipe bomb. By the way, I believe the Metro Police are now getting out of their car, and that's Vice President-elect's detail in the black SUV, I believe, parked about 30 feet from the pipe bomb, eating lunch. Okay, now we go over to the location of the pipe bomb. The cameras are scrambling. It appears to me that that's not a coincidence, that the person with the backpack who walked by that bench and then went up to the police and the detail didn't do that accidentally. They had a purpose in mind, and that what transpired after that was the result of information that person gave to them. If that person found the pipe bomb, would they be a suspect?
Well, again, I don't want to speculate about specific individuals. I will tell you that we have done thousands of interviews, reviewed something like 40,000 video files, of which this is one, assessed 500-something tips.
Have you interviewed that
the
person?
Devices. We have conducted all logical investigative steps and interviewed all logical individuals at this
then
point.
Then it's 900 days. You need to tell us what you found, because we're finding stuff you haven't released into the public. And
Okay. Chris Wray, yeah, kind of a joke of a guy here. Simple question. Did you interview the guy that walked over to the police cars? Yes or no question. We did all the logical. Well, the problem is, what do you consider logical? Because you're not answering a lot of the questions logically, and the investigation has been stalled. But, here we are under this FBI director, deputy director, attorney general, president, where they make an arrest.
Joe, I got to correct you.
Yeah.
He did not answer one question.
No, exactly.
He didn't answer any question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
This whole I'm not going to comment and all that. I don't know what was the gentleman from Tennessee with the we fund you. Yeah, I don't know if that's a veiled threat or but yeah, they do fund it. They do fund the FBI, and that is under this administration anyway. Because look what we're doing with the SNAP benefits. I brought this up the other day, which I think is an absolute logical thing to do. You're taking federal money, and we want information as to who the recipients are of the money. So you're going to give us the detailed information of these people? No, we're not going to do that. Well, then we're not giving you the money. It's that simple. That's simple. So for those, including those, I'm sorry, here in Massachusetts, who are on SNAP benefits, if they dry up because Massachusetts won't cooperate with the federal government, that's on Maura Healey. That's not on Trump. It's not on the Department of Agriculture. It's on Healey for thinking she's exempt from laws, that she's special, that she doesn't have to comply with the federal government and the money all money that comes from the federal government comes with strings attached. Y'all old enough to know that by now. So this Cole, we don't know the motive. What is his motive? Because they might be leaps and bounds at the FBI ahead of us. They know what the motive is. We don't know. They haven't let it out yet. But was it political, ideological, anarchist? Is he mentally unstable? I mean, what is this? What's going on? But he did both national headquarters. And the fact that the vice president-elect was in that vicinity, and if those bombs had gone off, I mean, they would have caused maximum chaos, misdirection, and confusion.
Joe, I saw pictures of these so-called bombs.
Yeah.
And it looks like the kind of thing that a 14-year-old would make for a demonstration at high school. He had a egg timer duct taped to
this is kind of Looney
pipe.
Tunes, right? An egg timer.
Okay, an egg timer.
Yeah.
Not the kind you twist and goes ding. Okay.
Yeah, I know those.
Okay, an egg timer.
I love those.
Maybe 1 minute he would have to turn this thing on and run.
Yeah.
So I've got to wonder who thinks these were viable explosives, because when you look at it, the picture of it, it's obvious it's junk.
Unless they blew up. then egg timer or not, if they had it. But my question, nobody said there wasn't explosives in it. There were viable bombs. They had explosive material in it. Now, whether his detonation system would work.
Who said that? That was Christopher Wray's FBI.
That is true.
And what do we know about the chain of evidence with that FBI?
Oh, I suspect big time, because we saw the amount of corruption under the older FBI, the former FBI, left and right. I rattled some of the stuff off, the altering forms, lying under oath, lying to the FISA court, planting stories, leaking to the media. So they run an article and then turn around and they use the fact that the outlet they leaked the story to wrote an article. They look to that to corroborate their lie in the first place. It's absolutely crazy, folks. Crazy. But it's all unfolding. We'll see what comes out of this. And what the motivation, I really would like to know. Now, I want to shift gears here because we've got this Minnesota feeding our future fraud case. Ridiculous. And like I said, don't think it's because we're about to hear a lot about the same type of level of fraud and corruption coming out of California. But no state. Look, whenever you have massive amounts of federal money being given away, there's going to be fraud. On some level. Ted? No.
I'm sorry to say this on the air, but I think Governor Tim will need those tampons.
Yeah.
Because he's going to have a bloody nose.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he's going to have an upset stomach and a headache. The guy has a very rough road ahead of him here. And, sometimes a single story tells you exactly what's going on in this country. And today, it's this, a Hallmark gift bag stuffed with $120,000 in cash dropped at the doorstep of a juror in Minnesota. And this is not a movie. It's not a Netflix drama. This is real life. This is what federal prosecutors say happened in the Feeding Our Future case, one of the biggest COVID-era fraud schemes in the country, supposedly about feeding the children. And it turned into feeding criminals and now allegedly an attempt to buy the justice system off. Because many of these children didn't even exist. They were made-up children that they just filled this out. Okay? So I want to talk you through what this story really says about COVID money, Minnesota's welfare mess, and whether you can trust the institutions that are supposed to protect your tax dollars and your liberty, quite frankly. Here's the bones of the case. Feeding Our Future, a nonprofit. I've been telling you, man, these nonprofits and these NGOs, the non-government organizations that get most, if not all, of the money from taxpayers. It's a laundry cleaning system. They get the taxpayer money, and then there's no accountability because they're a private organization, but they have the taxpayer money. This is how DOGE has been laundering money for decades, never mind years. So this was the FOF, Feeding Our Future, nonprofit, Minnesota, plugged into the federal child nutrition program during COVID. The money was supposed to go to feeding kids when schools were, I got to look at the time. I'm going to have to pick this up on the other side. We have to take our third and final break here, folks. So stick with us, 508-871-7000. 508-871-7000. We'll be back in 2 in 10, folks. All right, folks, welcome back to the fourth and final segment here in the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. While we have the time left, you can join the conversation. So we're talking about this feeding the frenzy thing, and during the break, Ted reminded me, and I talked about this, one of the most egregious type of ones here is the autism one, where not only, again, did they make up children, but they made up children who had autism. They were on the spectrum. But they also went to parents who they apparently thought would be open to this and said, if you agree to pretend that your child has autism, we'll give you a kickback. And it was like $300 to $1,500 a month. Which, of course, my question is, you're kicking back $1,500 a month to somebody. What the hell are you making? And that's the one where they had when they filled out the paperwork, they put the phone number, and they actually put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 as the phone number. Nobody thought that was strange. Nobody tried to call it. It's no number. I mean, but this stuff is absolutely ridiculous. But
isn't that the one that was just a post office box?
P.O. box in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 phone number. So come on, you're not even trying. You're not even trying. You know, and you know who Matt Cox is? COX. He is he's the guy. As a matter of fact, you'll see him on the commercial for one of those companies that monitor your deed so your house, your equity can't be stolen. And they use him because he got convicted of that. He did that. He scammed millions of dollars by just filing a notarized document with the clerk's office and transferring the ownership to him or one of his identities. And then they take loans out, and all of a sudden you have no idea this is happening, and you get notices that your house is going to foreclosure because you took out a few $100,000 in equity and haven't paid any of it back. And then you're expected to untangle this. So they use this guy, Matt Cox, to be their spokesperson. But he has a podcast, and he talks about his time in federal prison, which he got knocked down. I mean, he had almost 30 years, like 20-something years, and he got it knocked down, I think, to 13 because he ratted everybody out that he could in prison. Everybody. Anybody that told him anything, he ran, and he got time knocked off. He's a smart guy. This is one of those things where you're like, dude, why don't you use your powers for good? You could have made a fortune legitimately in business. But the point is, he talks about all these different people with all these different fraud things. And I'm sure I can hear him looking at this saying, dude, you're not even trying. He juggled all kinds of multiple scams, long range scams and stuff like that. But anyway, this COVID Feed Our Future money. Whole network of operators cooked up fake meal sites, fake kids, fake invoices, walked off with at least $250 million on this alone. That's billion with a B, guys. Luxury cars, big houses, overseas real estate. Everything but the actual hungry kids existed in this scam. And fast forward to the trial. Several of these folks are sitting in federal courtroom, finally facing a jury. That's how things are supposed to work. And then, according to this new indictment they've added on, they allegedly decided that the evidence doesn't look so good for them. They kind of got us. That 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 number might have tipped them off. So they tried something else. Let's buy the jury. Buy their jury. So prosecutors say that 5 of the defendants got together and targeted juror number 52. They thought she was the youngest juror, and this is important. They believed she was the only juror of color, and they thought that she would be more susceptible to the bribe. That's very racist on their part, isn't it? So they looked her up online, tracked down her address, watched her come and go. They talked about putting a GPS tracker on her car. And this is mob movie stuff, folks, right? So they pooled about $200,000 in cash. They wrote instructions for her, and I'm quoting what they wrote on the note: vote not guilty on all counts for all defendants, unquote. Then they went a step further and wrote, convince the other jurors to do the same, unquote. They even drafted arguments for her to use, including that the prosecution was racially motivated. Now, these thugs are the people who picked the female woman of color on the jury, figuring she's the most corruptible. So they weren't just trying to buy votes. They were trying to weaponize race as a shield against evidence. Then the hallmark moment, right? So one of the defendants flies in from Seattle, hooks up with the others, transfers the cash into a Hallmark gift bag, and they drive it over to Juror 52's house right before 9 p.m., knock on the door A relative opens. They hand over the bag in the pitch. This is a present for voting not guilty. We'll give you more if you deliver acquittals. Meanwhile, another defendant sits in the car, video recording the whole thing and sending the video back to the others on encrypted app, because why not incriminate yourselves in HD while you're at it? Wasn't there a Dumbest Criminals show years ago? Anyway, now here's the part that gives me hope. The jurist family did exactly what you and I would hope that we would do. They reported it immediately. So the judge tossed the juror off the panel to protect the integrity of the case. Absolutely need to do that. The rest of the jury got locked down even tighter. And now a grand jury has indicted these 5 on charges of conspiracy to bribe a juror, bribery of a juror, corruptly influencing a juror, and in one case, obstruction of justice for trying to wipe the phone clean when the judge ordered everybody to hand them over. And yes, as I will always say in the show, these are still allegations. They're entitled to a presumption of innocence and a fair trial. That's what separates us from the very banana republic behavior they're accused of. Now, let's zoom out here with me, because this is not just a story about one crooked nonprofit or one jury in one case. This is the end stage of a massive COVID money experiment. And during COVID, Washington opened the fire hose. Trillions went out the door. PPP loans, remember those? Unemployment benefits, emergency nutrition programs, you name it. A lot of that money went to people who needed it, but a staggering amount went to people who knew how to game the system. Fake businesses, fake employees, fake COVID tests, fake meal sites, fake kids. Conjured up children out of nowhere. And now if these charges are true, the profits from that fraud being used to try to fake a verdict. Minnesota has been ground zero for this kind of welfare program fraud. It's not just feeding our future. There have been other scandals involving child care subsidies, social services, COVID programs. Over and over, you see the same pattern. Big federal dollars, rushed oversight, state agencies asleep at the switch, politically connected nonprofits treated like they're beyond questioning. And if you start to question or even raise the idea of saying, wait a minute, this doesn't add up, what are you, racist? It's for the children. It's for the equity. It's for the vulnerable. And meanwhile, you've got guys driving Range Rovers and wiring money overseas. Feeding kids becomes feeding corruption, and then corruption turns around and tries to eat the justice system. That's the pipeline, folks. Now, from a constitutional law and order standpoint, this touches a massive nerve for me. The jury system is sacred. Is it perfect? Of course not. But in a free society, that random group of citizens in that box is where the government has to bring its evidence in public and convince them beyond a reasonable doubt. You start following jurors home, planting GPS trackers, dropping 6 figures of cash in a Hallmark bag, and telling them to play the race card in the deliberation room, you are not just stealing money. You are trying to steal justice itself. And here's the irony. The same big government that can't seem to monitor where hundreds of millions of COVID dollars go suddenly expects you to trust it with more power over your health care, over your speech, over your business, over your kids in school. They can't vent the grants. They can't stop the grift. They'll be happy to grow these programs. We're told, don't worry, we'll do universal basic income. Don't worry, we'll forgive student loans. Don't worry, we'll run with more health care and child nutrition from Washington. My question is simple. If you can't protect a child nutrition program from becoming a Lamborghini program, why should I trust you with anything bigger? There's another piece of this that bothers me deeply, the deliberate racial manipulation. These guys, according to the indictment, specifically target a juror they believed was the sole juror of color, and then prepped talking points about how the prosecution was racist, hoping that would override the evidence. Tap into the emotions. Tap into that systematic fear that racism is everywhere. Think about how ugly that is. Whatever real racism still exists in this country, and it does, it's not helped by criminals trying to hide behind it when they get caught. That doesn't advance justice, it poisons it. We throw the book at people who steal from programs meant for kids and then try to buy jurors. We still insist, even for them, that the government provides a case honestly in open court under the rules. If we give up either side of that equation, we're not constitutional republic anymore. We're just a place where the power takes turns cheating. All right, folks, we're going to have to come up to the end of the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. Thank you for joining me and tuning in. Don't forget this station does stream 24/7 from the TuneIn app. And that means you can take us anywhere. Tell Alexa to play it. I won't be here tomorrow, Fridays at 1 o'clock. Always the Carr Brothers come in, and they bring you the car show. So they'll be here tomorrow afternoon for that. And Conrad will be behind the board flying tomorrow. Then, of course, we've got the weekend. I'll be back Monday at 1 o'clock for the Joe Mangiacotti Show. And don't forget that this show is turned into a podcast. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Joe, out.